Hi, this is Shay Rook again. Welcome back to my series of landing the modular science mission on the moon and returning it to Earth. As you can see, we're in a circular orbit around the moon. Now we need to do a little bit of reconfiguration so that we're ready for landing and rendezvous operations. You can see that I've got docking ports between the top and bottom of the lander and the fuel tank here. And I also have, of course, docking ports on the outsides of all these science modules. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to undock the service module from the fuel and from the lander. We're going to put the service module, we're going to connect the service module to the fuel tanks, and then we're going to dock the lander on the outside here at one of these docking ports. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate them. I'm going to use the RCS on the service module to back it up and connect it to the fuel tank, and then I'll move the lander to one of these outside docking ports. So here goes. We're going to decouple and wait for the camera to stop moving. Now we're separated, and right now I'm controlling the lander. So I'm going to enable RCS, and I'm just going to slide one way. Doesn't really matter which. Now, the thing about docking with another spacecraft in orbit is that you have to find a way to make it intuitive for you. The best way I've found to do that is by using Chase View and by using the RCS translation keys on the right hand side of the keyboard, which of course are H and N for forward and reverse, K and I for up and down, and J and L for left and right. Now there are no directions like that in space, but since you're using Chase View, it works out pretty well. The thing that you have to think about with this is if you're docking a space plane or any other kind of spacecraft where your docking port is not on the nose of the spacecraft, you want to make sure that you change your control point like this so that you're controlling it from the right spot, and you're not having to constantly remember in your mind that up is left and down is right. We're just about clear of the service module. Once we are, I'll apply a little bit of RCS the other way to stop it, and it looks like our service module is actually coming into the fuel tanks by itself, which is nice. It's nice when it works out that way. And we'll go ahead and stop, and then we'll change to the service module. We'll enable RCS. It would help if I was controlling the service module. Now, as I said, you want to hit V until you get into Chase View, and then your controls are going to be exactly as you need them to be. As you can see, I'm applying pitch down, and the nose is dropping the way it needs to, and we're controlling it from here. That way we know that our controls are going to translate exactly the way we need them to. This is going to be a pretty simple maneuver. All I have to do pretty much is hit H to get closer to the fuel tanks, and I'm going to have to drop it down a little bit. Now, when you're using RCS, the thing to remember is that there are laws of physics in play here, and for every action there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction, which means that when you accelerate one way, you got to decelerate the other way, or you're just going to keep going that way forever. And we've successfully docked our service module with the fuel tanks. Now we're going to go back to the lander, and we're going to dock that to one of the science modules. We still have RCS enabled. We're going to get into Chase View so that we're directly behind it. I usually disable RCS when I'm just turning in place like this because there's no reason to use the fuel. We'll re-enable RCS, and we'll kind of look at what we need to do here. We need to come this way, which of course is going to be the H key. We're also going to need to come to the left and come down a little bit. Go ahead and start approaching, and we'll come down a bit. When you're first doing docking maneuvers, I would suggest only moving in one direction at a time, because it can get kind of complicated because you're trying to remember which keys to use for which direction, and you're also trying to pay attention to where you're going and cancel out any unwanted motion. So if you're not used to using those keys, that can get a little bit hairy. Just try getting all of your leftward motion done, then come forward, then come down, or however you want to do it. As you can see, we're just about lined up vertically, so I'm going to cancel that out. And then we're going to have to come to the left a little bit. I don't think we're lined up exactly straight, which is going to make it a little bit different from the way that we wanted to go. If you're not lined up exactly straight on that docking port, your controls aren't going to respond exactly the way you want them to. But as you can see, we've successfully docked with one of the science modules. The next step, of course, is to make sure that you've got plenty of fuel. And since there was no cross feed from these tanks during launch, they're fine. This one needs more fuel. So we right-click on that one, then we Alt-right-click on this one, and we transfer fuel and oxidizer out. And we'll wait for that to fuel up, and then we'll pick a landing spot. Alright, fuel transfer is complete. We should have a full load of fuel. Our RCS is just a little bit down, and that's fine. We're not going to need a whole lot of it. So let's go back out to map view, and let's see where we are right now. Now, picking a landing spot is not that difficult. Let's say for this example that we want to land on the South Pole. Basically, what you're going to want to do is undock the lander, so that you're not looking at a burn for the entire vehicle. And then I'm going to use RCS to get us clear of the service module. And it might help if I took one of the science modules with me. So yeah, we'll do that. Something tells me Mission Control wouldn't be too happy with me if I descended to the lunar surface without taking a science module. So we'll undock the science module too. And we'll decouple that. And then we'll use RCS to get ourselves clear. Now, landing on the lunar surface is actually a pretty simple affair. All you have to do is point at your retrograde vector and burn. That said, if you're trying to find a specific spot, you're going to have to use the map view. And you don't even really need a maneuver node for this. You're basically just going to try to, if you want to land on one spot, you're going to try to have your descent trajectory heading directly over that spot, maybe a few thousand meters above it, so that you can cancel out your horizontal velocity and come straight down. So right now we're pointed at our retrograde vector, and we're going to start burning. Stage to activate those engines. Go back out to map view and watch for the spot we want. So now we're going to be a few thousand meters, or going to be a few meters above the surface. Here we can cancel out our horizontal velocity right about that point, and then we just have to worry about descending. That's not the most efficient way of landing, of course, because if you want to land more efficiently, you're just going to keep burning on your retrograde vector. But it is simpler, because then you're only worrying about moving in one direction at a time. And when you're trying to land on the lunar surface, it's rough, it's uneven, and you definitely want to be coming straight down. We'll go ahead and set up our landing gear. And we're probably not going to need them because we're going to be in the sunlight, but we'll turn on our lights too. So now we're just going to keep pointing retrograde until we get to a spot that's a little bit closer to the surface. I'm going to time warp, and I'm going to watch for my altitude to drop to about 20,000 meters or so. And you can see I've already been here. I'm not too far away from the spot where I originally landed on the South Pole. Now, one thing that helps when you're trying to pick a specific biome to land in is that you can do an EVA and do an EVA report and see what you come up with as far as a biome. That works on Kerbal. On the Moon, unfortunately, you just kind of have to use the biome maps that are available on the internet. We'll go ahead and time warp a little bit further on, and you can see that the ground beneath us is changing. This looks like a nice flat spot to land right here. So once we get past this ridge here, we'll start our burn to cancel out the horizontal velocity, and that should be what we're looking at right here. You can see we have about 500 meters per second to cancel out, and this lander will do that just fine. You could actually, if you were a good enough pilot, and I'm not, you could probably visit 2 biomes in one trip with this lander. It's got lots of fuel. But we'll start canceling out our horizontal velocity. And we're going to get almost to a 0 velocity here. You don't start falling very quickly because you can see we're headed almost directly at the horizon. Now we are falling a little bit. You can see that the retrograde vector is coming up, which means that our prograde vector, of course, is headed down. Now we've almost canceled out our horizontal velocity. What I like to do is I like to try to cancel it all out. Just kind of follow that vector all the way up to the top. Once you've done that, you can see it's pretty much centered there, which means that you're falling almost straight down. We can see some ground clutter below, which means that we're not too far above the surface. So I'm going to time warp a little bit and let us fall. Now, the thing you want to watch here, of course, is your velocity. Once you start seeing ground clutter, you do not want to be above 100 meters per second. You're going to be falling a lot more quickly than you think you will. I usually try to keep it at about 40 meters per second, just because that's going to give me plenty of time to cancel out that velocity when I can see that I'm getting close to the ground. And it looks like we've picked a fairly level landing spot. I'm just going to keep trying to keep that vector pointed directly up. Now when you're working with a retrograde vector, the way to do that is to get outside of it and burn, and that'll push it in. If you're working with a prograde vector, you want to do it the other way. You want to be on the other side of the point that you're trying to go to. So if your retrograde vector is where my nose is pointing right now, you want to be burning over here. Anyways, we're getting pretty close to the surface. So I'm going to drop it down to about 15 meters per second. I generally try to keep my landings below 7 meters per second. As you can see, we're just to the point now where we're dropping below the horizon as far as the land goes. And our lights are starting to illuminate the surface, so we are getting pretty close. little bit bumpy, but we'll take it. Try to get it planted firmly. So we're down. Now one problem with this lander is that the docking port there is a docking port on the bottom of it. It has a tendency to break off. The good thing is you're not really going to need it from this point on. If it does break off, it's not going to hinder the mission. So at this point we can perform all of our science. And you're going to notice I'm not getting a whole lot from this, because I've already visited this biome. Actually, maybe I haven't visited this one because I'm getting quite a bit of science. Now that we've done all of our craft-based science, of course we can't use the barometer. It's not going to register anything. We'll go ahead and do a crew report from the surface. And we'll send that. Now there is kind of a bug with this, that if you still have this window up while you're transmitting, it'll just keep transmitting and it won't let you send another one. So you want to be careful about that. Now we'll start our EVA, and we'll do an EVA report as soon as we get out. You notice this is going to give you space just above the moon's polar lowlands, which is completely different from when you're standing right there. So we'll keep that, and we'll store it. Then we can do another EVA report when we get to the ground. And I'm not going to use the ladder to get down. Really, you don't even need it to get up. Take a surface sample, do an EVA report, and we'll even plant a flag. Now normally I've just been naming these after the biome that I land in, so we'll just do that. And Jack, since this one's for you, there's a plaque in your honor. Not that I don't enjoy being on the moon, but we're already done, so I'm just going to get in here and get ready to make our rendezvous. And now we'll zoom back out, and we can see that our service module, which I haven't bothered to rename yet, but it is the service module, still has quite a ways to go before it comes back around to us. When we make that rendezvous, we want to wait until it's about 80 kilometers away, and the reason for that is then you don't have to waste time chasing it around in orbit. But we'll cover that one in the next video. For now, we've landed and we've performed our science, and I'll see you in the next video.